Hello everyone, my name is Mirko and welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another brand new Apex Legends video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you guys the ultimate guide on how to dodge enemy bullets in all sorts of situations. Dodging bullets is so important, and it's really important you know how to dodge bullets effectively, especially if you're playing in ranked mode where you're getting drawn against good players every single game. As always, if you go ahead and enjoy today's video, be sure you're dropping a big thumbs up down below, and if you're currently not subscribed to the channel, be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any future videos on the channel. Now, dodging enemy bullets is sometimes the only thing that's going to get you past the line, especially if there's no cover around you. You really have to rely on your movement technique to be able to win the gunfight. So we're going to get the first most obvious one out of the way, and that is strafing. I'm sure most of you guys have heard the definition of strafing, but just because you know about strafing doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it the correct way. Some people will give you a definition of strafing to be just moving left to right, and that basically creates a harder target for your opponent, and although that is correct, doesn't necessarily mean you're always going to win the gunfight. There are better ways to strafe left and right to really create a problem for your opponent. First of all, the wrong way to strafe, which I actually see a lot of people do, is taking too much of a long time to switch from one direction to the other, and the reason why this is actually really bad is because you're giving your opponent time to lock onto you and land enough shots to put you in trouble. You do not want to be giving them an easy target to shoot at, and by strafing very slowly left to right is actually going to create an easier target for your opponent. I would say the perfect time to switch direction is no more than half a second. If you leave it later than that, you're giving your opponent enough time to readjust to their aim, and it's also good to be really unpredictable whilst you are strafing. So maybe when you strafe to one side and you strafe back to the other, maybe cut it short when you're going to the right, and then when you're going back to the left, leave it slightly longer than usual and then go back to the right. It's just making it hard for your opponent to readjust to their aim every time you do this, and it will get to a point where your opponent actually ends up missing most of their shots and they'll either have to reload or escape, and most of the time you can really pick off some easy kills by strafing. And one thing to mention as well, when you are strafing up close, it's always best to hip fire if you are up really close, because when you're hip firing and strafing at the same time, you can strafe much more faster because obviously you're maintaining your field of view and your movement is not cut short by aiming in. Now, the last thing I want to mention when it comes to strafing is whilst you are strafing and you've been dealt damage and the opponent's locked onto you, you want to immediately change direction. Even if you've only just started strafing to that one direction, you want to immediately change to the other direction, because what's happened is the opponent has readjusted to their aim and they're always going to be aiming to that specific side. So you want to break that readjustment and make the opponent have to readjust yet again. Now, the next tip I want to speak to you guys about is crouch spamming. Now, you're not actually spamming the crouch button, but the official word for this is called crouch spamming. Now, this is predominantly good if you're using things like snipers, and when you're using weapons like snipers, crouch spamming is actually better technique to be using than strafing. But luckily, crouch spamming isn't as complicated as strafing because it actually says it in the title what you need to be doing. But one thing I would say is that you only want to be crouching when your gun is not ready to shoot. The times you're shooting is when you don't want to be crouching, because shooting whilst crouching can actually put off your aim sometimes. So after you've taken that sniper shot, that's when you want to immediately be crouching, and then when your second shot is ready is when you want to be shooting, and then just keep repeating that same procedure. Now, this next tip is actually quite an advanced tip, so if you're a beginner out there, you can feel free to give this a go, but it might take a while for you to actually clock onto this. So the next tip I'm going to be speaking about is tricking the enemy into thinking you've retreated. Now, this is especially good up close. Basically, I'm going to show you guys an example because it is quite hard to explain. So as you guys can see from this example, I've actually run away from the enemy, and this actually tricks the enemy to thinking you've retreated. But what you want to do after this, as soon as you've got to cover, you want to immediately come straight out of the cover, because the enemy is going to do one of three things. They're either going to reload their weapon, they're either going to push you, or they're going to just completely back away. And all of these three things will give you such a big advantage, and they won't expect you to come out, especially if they've dealt damage into you. But the reason why this tip is so advanced is because you have to get the timing spot on. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want to retreat and wait until they've completely stopped shooting, because they're going to have time to reload their weapon if they want to, or push you. You want to immediately come out of cover just as you've gone past the cover. It's so hard to time it, but when you do time time it correctly the first few times, you will naturally start doing this on a regular basis. You want to catch the enemy completely off guard, whether they're trying to push you or whether they're trying to reload, and the only way you can do this is if you immediately come straight back out of the cover. You can also do this another way. You can start shooting at the enemy before they shoot at you, and then run past cover. Whilst you're running past the cover, they will be firing a few shots, and then you can catch them off guard yet again when they're reloading their weapon, or if they push you, either way. And the last tip I want to speak about is the most simplest tip ever, but there are a few people out there that won't know about this tip. It's to do with reloading. Now, if you guys don't know, you can actually slide whilst reloading in this game, and it's really simple. Whilst you're reloading, you just want to move to one side, you want to jump and then hold the crouch button, and it will put you into a slide. I just wanted to throw that tip in there for some of you guys that didn't know about it. But when you are in a gunfight and you find yourself having to reload, usually it's better to pull out the second weapon. But if you are at a point where you have to reload, you definitely want to be using this slide reload feature that is in the game. So anyway guys, I'm going to wrap this video up here. I hope you guys learned from these tips and they help you improve your game in Apex Legends. As always, if you guys did go ahead and enjoy today's video, be sure you're dropping a like down below, and if you're new to the channel, you're currently not subscribed, be sure you're subscribing as well so you don't miss out on any future Apex videos on this channel. Thank you all for watching this video. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch all of you guys out in another brand new Apex Legends video.